We all have long discussed that offense is the best part of defense, and that's the strategy that India should be employing. And when it comes to employing that strategy today, in a scenario where our deployment on the LAC has been increased as the Chinese pull in their heavy weapons, while at the same time taking on the terrorist forces still operating on the LOC. Today, the Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has once again reiterated that not only will we be seeing a surprise in Jammu and Kashmir soon, but that the people of PoK themselves will be looking at a reintegration with India. It is about time that it is Pakistan that is constantly on the back foot, having to explain why it is not stepping away from PoK and withdrawing its forces, instead of their entire propaganda campaign on Islamophobia and this and that, with which they used to keep India on the back foot. The push is well underway. Where do we take it next is the obvious question. Let us ask it. On the broadcast with me, we have Ambassador Achal Malhotra, Major General Shashi Asthana, Professor Madhav Nalapat, and Sumit P joining us on the telecast. We also have Rajiv Chunni ji. We've interviewed him several times on NewsX. He is from a family with roots in what is currently Gilgit-Baltistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Let me quickly begin with Professor Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, the importance as we speak of ensuring that the words that are being spoken at the highest levels become the normal part of the conversation globally about PoK and its reintegration with India. How important is this push, sir?
Let me tell you, Rishabh, it was an action which I can only describe as criminal, allowing PoK to remain outside the control of the Indian Army in 1947 and 1948. Because PoK is critical, this entire region is critical to the geopolitics of Asia and in fact to the geopolitical strength of India. India is much weaker because PoK is not part of India in effect, although it should be. So frankly, what was done there needs to be reversed. The second point I want to make is that I believe it is essential that PoK be recovered by India. Absolutely essential. I have long felt this, just as, for example, I talked about Article 370 over a long time. I have long felt that we have to ensure the reintegration of PoK with the rest of India. Okay. Having said that, yes, it's important to have the support of the local population with us. Having the support of the local population, as you know, General Asthana will tell you, he's a military expert. Having that support is very important even in military operations. Also in terms of convincing world public opinion about the injustices being done in PoK. And so let me come to the final point in this segment. We need to launch a worldwide education campaign showing what the Pakistan Army and the so-called army-controlled state of Pakistan is doing to the people of Gilgit-Baltistan. Absolute lack of any kind of democracy, lack of any kind of power, poverty, illiteracy, disease, all kinds of horrible things are happening there. And I'm really sorry to say, until to some extent the Modi government has come, nothing was said about it. Our policy was see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. So we were always reacting to Pakistan's fake charges rather than telling the truth about what's happening in Pakistan and what's happening in that bit of India which is still controlled by Pakistan. We need a global info war which basically tells the truth so that more and more people in Gilgit-Baltistan know that India, its government, its people are standing with them as they move to remove this yoke of slavery. Let me also say, the so-called Prime Minister of PoK, of so-called Azad Kashmir, the man is like a domestic servant. He is treated worse than a servant. I mean, even the ministers in the Punjab or Sindh are not treated as servants. They are treated as junior employees. The PoK Prime Minister is treated like a servant by the Pakistan army. And this is their pathetic condition, which unfortunately the world is not aware of, because India has failed to provide enough evidence about that to the world.
Okay, let me get in Rajiv Chunni on this. Rajiv Chunni ji, how do we take that step forward? How do we now reach out? Because a lot of people such as yourself and your families and the people you work with, and you work with thousands of people, Chunni ji, a lot of them are no longer in PoK because a demographic change is happening.
देखें सर, एक बड़ा स्वागत योग्य ये बयान है, और अभी जो पैनलिस्ट बोल रहे थे बहुत अच्छी बात इन्होंने की कि इसको काफी देर पहले खाली हो जाना चाहिए था। ये क्रिमिनल एक्ट है जो आज तक ये पाकिस्तान के साथ बना हो, और हम रेजोल्यूशन पास करते रहे, लेकिन कभी भी हमने प्रधानमंत्री सतर पर, मंत्री सतर पर या सचिव सतर पर कभी ये बात नहीं उठाई पाकिस्तान के साथ कि भाई हमारा इलाका है, इसको छोड़कर चले जाइए। लेकिन आज एक हिम्मत जो है वो दिखाई है इन्होंने, और हमें यकीन इसलिए हो चला है क्योंकि 370 और 35 से हटाना कोई आसान काम नहीं था, लेकिन एक सेकंड में इसको कर देना, मैं समझता हूं कि इस सरकार के लिए कुछ भी नामुमकिन नहीं है।
चुन्नी जी,
और जहां तक पार के लोगों की बात है, मैं आपकी जानकारी के लिए बता दूं, क्योंकि हम भी मीरपुर शहर से विस्थापित हैं, वो लोग कभी भी पीछे नहीं हटे। वो तो पहले दिन से चाहते थे कि पाकिस्तान से हमारा पिंड छूटे, लेकिन यहां कुछ ऐसी ताकतें थी जिनको इस बात का शायद ये वो चाहते नहीं थे कि इनको कभी हम वापस लाएं, क्योंकि रेजोल्यूशन पास कर आप बैठ गए, लेकिन कभी आपने प्रयास नहीं किया। और अभी यहां बात हुई सरकार की, वहां के प्रधानमंत्री की, तो मैं समझता हूं कि यहां सरकारी दफ्तर में क्लर्क के बराबर भी प्रधानमंत्री के, वहां के प्रधानमंत्री की औकात नहीं, और वो समझते हैं जब वो यहाँ के मंत्रियों और मुख्यमंत्रियों की ऐशो आराम देखते हैं, उनका काम करने का तरीका देखते हैं, उनके पास ताकत देखते हैं, तो उनको लगता है कि हमें हिंदुस्तान के साथ जुड़ना चाहिए था, हमसे गलती हो गई। लेकिन मैं एक बात जरूर कहना चाहूंगा, इस बात की भी जांच होनी चाहिए, हम पीओके तो वापस लें, इस बात की जांच होनी चाहिए कि जब महाराजा हरि सिंह जी ने एक्सेशन कर दिया 26 अक्टूबर 1947 को, और वो 27 अक्टूबर 1947 को मान लिया गया और भारतीय फौजें यहां लैंड हो गई, उसके बाद अधिकतर इलाका पाकिस्तान के कब्जे में क्यों गया? जब हम हिंदुस्तान के नागरिक हो गए, जब ये इलाका हिंदुस्तान के साथ जुड़ गया, भारत की फौजें हमारे यहां बैठी, कौन लोग जिम्मेदार थे? वहां के इमरजेंसी एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर क्या कर रहे थे जिन्होंने वीरपुर तक
नहीं, लेकिन हमें चुन्नी जी पता है कौन लोग जिम्मेदार थे कि
मैं समझता हूं कि एक बहुत बड़ी साजिश हुई है, और आज इसको अगर ठीक किया जा रहा है।
चुन्नी जी, हमें पता है कि आजादी के बाद 15 अगस्त के बाद भी जितना हम अंग्रेजों को सुन रहे थे वो बरकरार रहा। बट चुन्नी जी, बिफोर आई ओपन एवरीबडी एल्स, आप हमें बताइए, जो हमारे व्यूअर्स फिर से देख रहे हैं, मैं इसके बारे में आपसे पहले भी चर्चा कर चुका हूं, 47-48 में मीरपुर में पाकिस्तानी फोर्सेस ने जो अट्रोसिटीज कमिट करी थी, मैसेकर्स कमिट करे थे, वो हमारे व्यूअर्स को एक बार फिर से बताइए।
देखें, ये दिल दहला देने वाले थे, और औरतों के साथ रेप किए गए, उनके मां बाप के सामने उनके साथ जातियां की गई, और जो जवान औरतें थी उनको उठाकर ले गए, और जो सिख भाईचारा था हमारा, सिख जो थे, क्योंकि उनकी पहचान बहुत आसान थी, क्योंकि केशधारी थे, और उन पर तो इतने जुल्म किए इन लोगों ने, क्योंकि इनको पता था कि ये सिख हैं, ये मुसलमान नहीं हो सकते या किसी दूसरे मजहब के नहीं हो सकते। तो एक तरह से मैं समझता हूं कि वहां पर दरिंदगी की सारी हदें पार कर दी। और मैं ये बात आपको कह दूं, पता नहीं इतिहास किसने लिखा है, लेकिन मैं विश्वास के साथ आपको ये कह सकता हूं कि महाराजा हरि सिंह 15 अगस्त से पहले भी चाहते थे भारत में विलय करना, लेकिन भारत में कुछ ऐसी ताकतें थी जिन्होंने इस विलय को होने नहीं दिया। और उसमें हमारे यहाँ के कुछ लोग भी थे, नेतागण थे, और हिंदुस्तान के भी थे।
Let me address that. No, let me.
कहानी कि हमने स्टैंड स्टिल एग्रीमेंट किया था, जबकि महाराजा हरि सिंह बाकी अन्य राज्यों की तरह चाहते थे कि हम भी भारत के साथ विलय करें।
Okay, let me address that. Let me address that. Just one second, I want to address this.
वहां पर एक मिलिटेंसी की फैक्ट्री बनी हुई है जो पाक अधिकृत कश्मीर में, जहां पर ट्रेनिंग दी जाती है, वहां पर लॉन्चिंग पैड है, और इन सारी चीजों को खत्म करने के लिए जल्द से जल्द हमें उस इलाके को वापस लाना पड़ेगा। और मेरे जैसे लोगों को जो 70 साल से भी अधिक आज समय हो गया है, वो विस्थापन में है। हम अपने घर जाना चाहते हैं, हमें रिफ्यूजी दर्जा नहीं मिला, हमें कहा गया आप विस्थापित हैं, हम आपको पुनः आपके घर में भेजेंगे। हम जाने के लिए
वादा पूरा करना है अब। ओके, चुनी जी एक सेकंड।
बंदी है और प्रयास करना चाहिए जिस तरह भी हो, चाहे मिलिट्री लगाकर, किसी भी ताकत के साथ। मैं समझता हूं कि अपने इलाके को, अपनी एक एक इंच भूमि को वापस लेना चाहिए। जो गलतियां हमारे पुराने शासकों ने की हैं, आज उसको ठीक करने का समय है।
Okay, Chunni ji, 1 second. Shashi Asthana, let's quickly address the question Rajiv Chunni has raised, whose entire family comes from Mirpur, and he runs an organization for displaced persons from PoK. We know for a fact that for some reason we went into a standstill agreement. We know for a fact that the then, I think it was then at that time, Lieutenant General Cariappa was in a position to go back and reclaim all this territory, but he was stopped. We know for a fact that one British Army serving major by the name of Brown assassinated his own troops, including the Maharaja's representative, and handed over Gilgit-Baltistan to the Pakistanis. A few months later, he was given an award by the British government. These are facts. Now, why don't we come out with a fact-finding mission on who is it who took the decisions that led to the abandonment of PoK at that point of time when we had the military advantage?
I fully agree with you. There are in the history of nation some mistakes which have very grave implications as we are facing. The fact is that when Maharaja Hari Singh signed the instrument of accession, the entire Jammu and Kashmir belonged to us. It continues to belong to us. What you are saying is absolutely right. Indian Army, despite certain mistakes by the political hierarchy at that point of time of unnecessarily going to UNSC, we were, and General Cariappa and a number of other generals wanted to go and reclaim the entire Jammu and Kashmir. The importance, the strategic importance was very well understood by our military leaders.
But who advised us? General Asthana, who advised us? It was London telling us to do it, and we were following the specification from London. Even the decision to go to UNSC came from London.
Yeah, that is one. And secondly, London was telling us, and certain people in the hierarchy who were aspiring for important posts, they agreed to it. The question is, even if London was telling us, our generals were saying, no, that is not in our strategic interest. Our borders, Gilgit-Baltistan, PoK is important to us. Our borders with Afghanistan are important to us. Today, this entire Sino-Pak nexus has emerged because the situation is as it is.
I want to examine this. I want to examine this culpability. Ambassador Achal Malhotra, there were two signatories on the instrument of accession, Maharaja Hari Singh and Lord Mountbatten of Burma, who was not only a British citizen, the former viceroy, but a member of the royal family. These are the people that signed the instrument of accession. So he is witness party to an actual legal document signed on behalf of a free India. So when a major of the British Army kills his own troops, assassinates the Maharaja's representatives, and hands over a part of territory that a member of the British royal family with his signature bearing has accepted legally belongs to India, and this same major is given an award, a citation a few weeks later, what does that tell us about culpability?
Well, we can write volumes on the conduct of the British during the period of colonization of India and the role they played in the partition of India. So the point at this point of time is, one thing is to dig into the past, hold those people responsible, constitute some fact-finding missions, and then come to a conclusion under what circumstances did Pakistan occupy Kashmir, including Gilgit-Baltistan and other areas. The other thing is how to address, even if we admit that some mistakes were made in the past in the history, and probably they were made under the circumstances as they prevailed at that point of time. The moot point is, the real issue is that how do we address those issues and how do we rectify that situation at this point of time? You know, the BJP government, of course, is very clear in its mind, and they have made many statements from the parliament and otherwise also about the integration of entire Kashmir with India, and they have already taken some steps in that direction also. And there can be no two opinions about the fact that integration of Kashmir with India is incomplete unless the Pakistan occupied territory is also integrated with India. The question has always been how? How do we do it? Do we do it through the use of or do we wait for a situation towards what the defense minister has indicated today, that there will be a revolt from within the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and that would lead to integration of Pakistani occupied
Ambassador
Kashmir
Achal
with
Malhotra,
India.
what when it's too late? Because as we speak, the Pakistanis are trying to accelerate their demographic change. We know
Yeah, but if you
that they're
don't
moving
take
in the
action now, it
Pashtuns
will
and
be
Pathans
further late,
and Punjabis.
There is always a time to start. 3 years later will be even, we will late plus 3 years. 5 years later will be late plus 5 years.
Okay.
So there has to be a point,
Okay.
a moment when you have to take a decision. But I am saying, let me just complete my my reading of the statement. That is very clear that so far we have heard our government representatives saying that ultimately Pakistan occupied Kashmir will be integrated into India. And today I think Defense Minister has made it clear that they are not going to use military option suo motu, but they'll wait or they will wait for the time when there is a movement from within Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Now the point is, if a defense minister of your country is saying probably has a feedback, the situation there is not so good, a situation there is so bad that sooner or later there will be revolt.
Okay.
And that would be the time, like Bangladesh, we will be able to, move in and, accomplish the
So then the question
task. That's my reading.
boils down to how do we encourage the process by seeing better example
Yes.
from India? Let me just
Yes.
address that in a second. Sumit Peer,
Yeah.
now on the first point, we have never been asked to address what went
Correct.
right and what went wrong, and many things went wrong. Now I understand that hindsight is very easy to lecture and the circumstances were different, but we followed a British diktat. We allowed a British man serving his own queen and country to decide on the behalf of India many things even after 15th of August 1947, and we allowed the British Army, which were an active role. The army chief was still a Britisher when all of this was going on, and they were providing information to both sides. They had a culpability. Now should we simply say that that culpability no longer needs to be addressed?
Rishabh, the point here is that to me, PoK or Gilgit, which includes Gilgit Baltistan, is an unfinished agenda of our partition. This is like a brother or a son or a daughter which is with Pakistan, which we are waiting for 70 years to get back. We have to get it back at any cost, and sooner the better, because in my opinion, there's a window of opportunity to act. What I see today, a very finite sign from Rajnath Singh ji, he compared the development in Kashmir and he said, look, the people of PoK or Azad Kashmir or whatever you want to call it, now will want to be in India, because it is not only the military might, it is not only the power of India which is going to take it back, it is not our right only, because they're also seeing the quantum of development, they're seeing the advantages of being in India, which they have seen in last 6 years in Kashmir. He mentioned a figure of 2 lakh crore, that is $30 billion of infrastructure put in terms of hospitals, universities, medical colleges, which locals are benefiting from them. So for the first time, I'm seeing the Indian Defense Minister giving a very clear green signal, political green signal to the people, to the groups, to the interested parties.
Okay, so Sumit Peer, where do we take it? Okay, it's easy, the talk is cheap, right? So where do we take it now? Now we've been running a campaign here for 1.5 years of filling the seats, of allowing people who are displaced persons like Chunni ji to sit in a new assembly that is going to be formed in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, to sit in parliament, give Kashmiri Pandits a voice in that assembly, give them a voice in parliament, about setting up an administration in exile. Let's appoint the district collectors.
Correct.
Let's appoint the DMs. Should we now do it?
Absolutely, Rishabh. There are a couple of things we should do. First of all, filling those seats. Kashmiri Pandits should get a reservation in the J&K Assembly, because minus that, their representation electorally is impossible. Point number 3, all the activists from this Gilgit-Baltistan, political asylums from Balochistan and all, we should give them, we should run these, those provincial governments or their offices right from Delhi, and we should let the world know how these Muslims in Pakistan are not safe, but they are safe in secular and democratic India. That is how you show the power of secular and democratic India to the whole world.
Okay, let me just distill this. Professor Nalapat, just taking it from without doing any military intervention, of the concept of, if we say that this is part of Indian territory, which is our long-standing position, then there is no reason that the district magistrates, the district collectors can't be appointed in absentia. We have 6 lakh people of PoK origin families lying as displaced persons here in India and suffering. Let's give them a voice.
Look, Rishabh, for a long time, after the KMT fled to Taiwan in 1949, for decades after that, they had legislators who belonged to all the different provinces of China. They had, paid, legislators, officers of rule machinery, allegedly administering the rest of China. It made no difference. Let me be very blunt. It is only the possibility of military force combined with diplomatic power that is going to change ground reality. And the people of Gilgit-Baltistan will face suicide if they were to oppose without strong backing. So that strong backing is a must. And as you correctly said, there has to be a reckoning for past mistakes. The Indian system never recognizes the past mistake. I mean, even the Henderson-Brooks report about 1962 is not public. How many years have gone by since 1962, Rishabh? Please count. Why is it that even that report is not public? Why is it so few details are public in India? This is the only major democracy that completely hides information from the public to protect officials who at that point in time were responsible for either negligence, mischief, or outright treachery. Now, I want to make one point. What are we talking about? I have always believed, first, physician, heal thyself, and then if you heal thyself, you can go and heal others. We went ahead and begged Lord Mountbatten to continue as the first Governor General of India, to continue in Rashtrapati Bhavan, to be the Chief of the Armed Forces. We allowed this British general, we allowed this treacherous major to continue. Why didn't the cabinet sack the major, sack the general? In my view, they could have even been shot, frankly, for the simple reason that they have committed treachery against the government that they are legally bound to serve. And as General Astana knows, that kind of treachery is completely impermissible in people in uniform. None of this was done. So we have to understand the past in its full reality and then fashion realistic instruments. And let me tell you one thing. I don't think that Rajnath Singh, talked about the defense option not being used. I don't think he's a defense minister who believes that the military is of no use, that he has to turn to Satyagraha and only Satyagraha. Then he will not be defense minister, he will be the community development minister. I have long said that it is possible to take back PoK if we work to a sensible
So the people
plan.
of PoK need to have the certain assurance that if they do rise up, that they will get support like the Mufti,
Exactly.
just like the Mukti Vahini had that assurance in Bangladesh in 70 and 71, that if they were to rise up and fight the good fight, that they would get support from India. That same assurance has to be given there, where General Shashi Asthana, we have a case in point. We've done this before, where we've done a limited intervention of a popular movement, but that popular movement would have been completely crushed had they not have the safety and security of the knowledge that their intervention from India would come.
Yes, I agree. We will have to repeat Bangladesh. We will have to create a Mujibur Rahman again. We will have to prepare people. In military terms, we call it intelligence preparation of battlefield.
We have
Now, before we get the troops in, the intelligence preparation is necessary, and intelligence preparation can start from information. Now, in information, everybody has covered almost everything. One point I want to add, which a question which has not been addressed. What was British intention, and why did they do so? They found that a united India will never toe their line, and therefore the West thought that if we have Pakistan on their side, and if we have that strategic territory of Pakistan, that if that falls in their side, it may be useful for them. And that is why they divided that, okay, let that territory be there, and then it was
General
included
Asthana,
in
what you are saying is
that
this Major Brown who did this was not acting out of his own free will, that he was probably given instructions that this is what you have to do and hand over Gilgit to Pakistan.
Subsequently, the Central Treaty Organization. And then in that treaty organization, it died its natural death because Iran and Iraq moved away. But Pakistan was part of that, and Pakistan was part of the West at that point of time. That is number one.
Correct.
Number two, when we talk of lot of preparation of the people, now as General Nawalapat mentioned, center of gravity in such operations is people. In Bangladesh, people were with us, and that is why we could do the victory in 16 days. So people have to be with us, and they will be with us only when they are fed the right information as to what went wrong earlier and what best can be done to you now. And that is.
So how do we create that situation? Rajiv
And
Chunni, how do we create स्थिति कैसे हम create करें कि सही information जो लोग अभी भी मर रहे हैं गिलगिट बाल्टिस्तान और पीओके में, उनको सही खबर मिले और आश्वासित किया जाए कि अगर आप आगे बढ़ेंगे तो हम आपके साथ हैं।
देखें, हम लोग जो हैं, क्योंकि हमारी भाषा एक है, हम पहाड़ी लोग हैं, पोथवारी भाषा थी हमारी मीरपुर, मुजफ्फराबाद और पुंछ के इलाकों में, जो आज पाकिस्तान के कब्जे में। और मैं आपकी जानकारी के लिए बता दूं और सारे पैनलिस्ट की जानकारी के लिए बता दूं कि सोशल मीडिया ग्रुप्स बने हुए हैं आज भी, इस तरफ के लोगों के भी, पार के लोगों के भी। वो आपस में एक दूसरे से बातें करते हैं, वहां की तस्वीरें भेजते हैं, और यहां हो रही तरक्की को देखकर उनकी आंखें फट जाती हैं, और वो देखते हैं कि किस तरीके से हिंदुस्तान तरक्की कर रहा है, और वो चाहते हैं यहां आना। मैं तो कहता हूं कि सिर्फ हमें हाथ बढ़ाने की जरूरत है, और हम एक कोशिश करें, क्योंकि हमसे बेहतर कोई नहीं जानता। हमने तो काफी बार ये बात कही है कि जब तक पीओके वापस नहीं आता, तो हमारी जो एलओसी है, लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल है, वहां पर हमारे जो लोग हैं मीरपुर से, मुजफ्फराबाद से और पुंछ से विस्थापित, उन लोगों की वहां पर भर्ती कर आर्मी में उन लोगों को एलओसी पर खड़ा किया जाए, क्योंकि वो जुबान भी समझते हैं पार की, और वहां से आने वाली साजिश को भी पहचान पाते हैं। क्योंकि एक आदमी जो साउथ से आया है या कहीं और से आया, हम उसकी किसी इंटीग्रिटी पर डाउट नहीं कर रहे, लेकिन हम कहते हैं कि वहां पर भाषा का समझ आना भी बड़ा जरूरी है। खाली मिलिट्री से काम नहीं होगा, हमें स्ट्रेटेजिक,
it's a good idea of how do we take the help of the people.
एक दूसरे की भाषा जाने, एक दूसरे की
हम तबीयत जाने। और
मैं आपकी जानकारी के लिए बता दूं, पाक अधिकृत कश्मीर में, सिर्फ पाक अधिकृत कश्मीर में ये पहाड़ी बोली जाती है, पूरे पाकिस्तान में पहाड़ी नहीं बोली जाती, वो पंजाबी क्षेत्र है। इसलिए ये लोग भाषा की वजह से भी तंग है। ये हमारे साथ
For the people watching the broadcast, Sunit, एक second. We did the same thing in 1771 when you had local Bengalis who understood the specific dialect that is spoken in Bangladesh to distinguish between people who had come from West Pakistan. The barring caveat, of course, being that there we did our job and we left. Here it is to integrate these people back with where they belong. Ambassador Malhotra wants to make an interjection. Go ahead, sir.
No, I just wanted to make a quick clarification. You know, when I said Defense Minister is ruling out the military option, what I meant was that there is no plan in the near future to attack, use military armed forces to evacuate to capture that area. What I wanted to say was that he is rightly pointing it out. We will wait till such time as the local conditions become such that it becomes very,
fair enough, sir. Fair enough. He's not saying we're sending in the army tomorrow, but how do then we create the local conditions? What more can we do, Ambassador?
Well, that of course is like, Pakistan is going around and saying about the Kashmir that we extend political, diplomatic and moral support. So under the guise, we can always cultivate organizations there inside Pakistani occupied Kashmir, outside Pakistan, overseas. We can go and do our diplomatic campaigns, educate the people all over the world. And there are, these days social media is very, very effective means of creating awareness about.
So we have to make it more effective than how effective
also
the Chinese.
Yes. One last point. We must do some visible improvements in the Kashmir Valley.
Okay, visible improvements. Let me pick up that point. Sumit, picking up that point of visible. This is what Rajnath Singh is talking about. Visible improvements.
Rishabh, 2 lakh crores is $30 billion for hospitals, AIMS, and there are medical colleges in remote districts like Kishtwar, Doda engineering colleges, central and universities, which are only benefiting locals, benefiting locals. This is tangible development which has happened in last 6 years. That is what Rajnath Singh ji meant. Point number 2, he's giving a very, very green signal to them. It's a Bangladesh-like signal. You start, we are with you. And point number 3, kinetic means or military means cannot be ruled out because, Rishabh, remember, this area is where the launch pads are. This area is where the training camps are. This area is where they're using to hurt us every day. And this area belongs to us, sir. We have every goddamn right to take it by military force.
Okay, so the measure of resolve.
Diplomacy ab theek hai. Diplomacy वगैरह सब ठीक है. Military option is not ruled out. That is our wish as and when we want to practice it.
Okay, I'll end it there. Professor Nalapat, the measure of our resolve. If you happen to be sitting in PoK and have been absolutely badgered by the Pakistani for 70 years, and every time you look the way of India, you've not found very much. Today, when you're looking and you're seeing India facing down China on one side and trying to wipe out terrorism on the other side, conducting surgical strikes, for the first time, we are seeing people from Balochistan and other places make representations before the UNHRC and all these places that have traditionally been used to bash India. Do you feel a lot more confident today?
I would like to see what Indira Gandhi did in the year preceding the military action in Bangladesh, and that is a global campaign that shows what is happening inside first of all Pakistan, and more specifically inside PoK, and exactly why instead of Azad Kashmir, it is actually the slave part of Kashmir. They have been enslaved in PoK, and I would like to see a similar campaign. Indira Gandhi could do it, and I am very certain Prime Minister Modi can do an even more effective job in the next 1 year to conscientize the world about what is happening in PoK, and also to conscientize the world about what the Pakistan army has done to the innocent people of Pakistan.
Okay, and that's the only way we have. We need now a permanent representation investigating the developments in PoK, every single atrocity, every single murder, every single conversion, every single forced demographic change, every single terror attack needs to be done in document after document, and you need to go physically be available at all the top forums in the world and raise this every day, every night, until this becomes the conversation. Not what the Pakistanis have made the conversation. India is Islamophobic, India is crushing people, and then you realize a different set of people start winning Pulitzer Prizes for developments happening in Kashmir.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.